Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a look at a deeply ingrained belief about body weight and the human heart. For decades, we've stepped onto a scale and relied on a single math formula to tell us exactly how healthy we are. But, well, the latest medical science is actually telling us that number might be lying to us. So get ready to completely rethink everything you thought you knew about your weight.
To start things off, I want you to picture this. It's kind of like a biological detective story. Say a patient eats right, they stay active, they step on the scale at the doctor's office, and boom, they see a perfectly normal weight. Their doctor smiles, gives them a thumbs up, the whole shebang. Yet, seemingly out of nowhere, that very same patient suffers from severe heart failure. I mean, how does that even happen? It really forces us to ask, does a perfectly normal weight actually guarantee a healthy heart? And the answer, as we're going to uncover today, is a resounding no.
All right, let's dive right into part one, the myth of BMI.
Based on some groundbreaking findings presented at the scientific sessions of the American Heart Association, the medical community is really starting to challenge the ultimate authority of the body mass index. A person might look totally healthy on the outside, but having an excess of abdominal fat significantly ramps up the danger to the heart. And honestly, here's the kicker. This holds completely true even for folks with a perfectly normal BMI. The scale says you're fine, right? But that belly fat is quietly amplifying your risk for a major cardiac event.
Which brings us to part two, the danger under the skin.
So the crucial point in our biological investigation is that the actual location of the fat is our prime suspect. We're talking specifically about visceral fat here. This is the fat situated deep inside your belly, literally wrapping itself around crucial internal organs, like your liver and your intestines. It is distinctly different from subcutaneous fat. That's the soft, jiggly fat right under your skin that you can easily pinch. Subcutaneous fat is largely harmless, but visceral fat, that is a completely different, highly dangerous story.
Let's move on to part three, the inflammation factory.
We really got to stop thinking of body fat as just some passive biological savings account. Visceral fat actually acts like a toxic inflammation factory operating 24/7. Let's walk through this chain reaction step by step. First, this fat tightly surrounds your critical internal organs. Second, it continuously releases highly active substances, like cytokines, which are basically inflammatory messengers, directly into your bloodstream. Third, all those substances trigger a state of chronic, systemic inflammation. And finally, step 4, this constant grinding state physically batters your blood vessels in your heart over time.
Let's look a bit closer at the ravages of this chronic inflammation. Because it's continuously pumping out from the visceral fat, the inflammation literally never shuts off. This fundamentally alters your body's immune response. It aggressively promotes oxidative stress, which actively harms the health of your actual cells. Ultimately, this relentless daily biochemical barrage severely damages the cardiovascular system, basically creating the perfect biological environment for heart problems to develop down the line.
Okay, let's see how this all builds up in part 4, the new medical standard.
Now, you might be wondering, what does the hard clinical data actually say? Well, in a landmark study presented to the American Heart Association, researchers wanted to see precisely what physical measurements correlated with cardiovascular events. So they closely observed 112 specific cases of heart failure. Was the main factor their overall weight? Was it their BMI? Actually, scratch that, it wasn't quite either of those. The clinical findings here are a massive wake-up call to the entire medical community.
And this brilliantly illustrates what they found. When predicting the onset of heart failure, simple waist circumference and the waist-to-height ratio demonstrated a phenomenally stronger correlation than the traditional body mass index. Out of those 112 cases, waist measurements were just significantly more predictive. In a head-to-head comparison, the old gold standard of BMI simply failed as an accurate diagnostic tool.
It all boils down to one simple, absolutely crucial takeaway: the importance of the location of fat rather than the total amount. Think of it like biological real estate. You can actually have a higher total amount of fat, but if it's stored safely under the skin away from your organs, your heart risk is considerably lower than someone with far less total fat who happens to store it all as visceral fat wrapped right around their liver.
So what do we actually do with this empowering new information? Well, the source material strongly advocates for immediately modifying our preventive medical practices. It suggests that doctors must proactively integrate simple waist circumference measurements into our routine medical evaluations. By making this one tiny adjustment, healthcare professionals can accurately identify at-risk individuals much, much earlier, literally years before that invisible chronic inflammation permanently damages the heart. Which leaves us with a highly critical question for you to ponder today. At your very next medical checkup, will you step off the scale and ask your doctor for a tape measure instead? It's for sure time we rethink how we measure our own health. The scale might tell you your relationship with gravity, but a simple tape measure wrapped around your waist, that might just be the exact tool that saves your life. Thanks so much for joining me to unpack this fascinating science today. And hey, keep asking the right questions about your health.